Matt, Scott, Reuben, Elliot. Long ago, the four podcasters lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Australian nation attacked. Only the Doofcast, master of all four podcasters, could stop them. But when the world needed it most, it vanished. 100 years passed and we discovered the new Doofcast. Although its podcasting skills are great, it has a lot to learn before it's ready to save anyone. But I believe the Doofcast can save the world.
Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. The four elements have gathered again. Gentlemen, open your chakras and announce yourself.
I'm Reuben, and I will open my light chakra. The distance between us is but an illusion, and I'm very excited that we're all connected again.
I am Elliot. Mine is the sound chakra, and I loved Season 8 of Game of Thrones.
I am Matt. Mine is the fire chakra, and I, to my shame, thought some episodes of that season were pretty good.
And I am Scott Daly. My thought chakra is telling me to ditch all you losers immediately, which is a good thing, I think. Elliot and Reuben, thank you so much for joining Matt and I once again. We are thrilled to have you here.
Yes, well, it's good to be back. We really enjoyed doing the Season 1 discussion. And time to unite the four elements again and jump back in for Season 2.
Yeah, and now that you've set a pattern, you have to be back for Season 3. There's you don't have a choice.
Definitely. Yeah, it has to go this way. I was just telling you guys, it was hard for me to stop watching this season and do this podcast. I just wanted to just plunge on into Season 3.
I think sometimes it's good to set up those limitations on yourself, though.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I've never kind of divided the show into distinct seasons when I watch it before. Like, I've never been like, oh, just watch Season 1 and then stop. But Season 2 is like, man, it's really good.
Yeah, it really makes Season 1 feel like a proof of concept in comparison. To me, Season 2 is just really picks up where the last one left off and runs with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And we're going to talk all about that this week because in case you guys haven't noticed, I wonder if anyone's listening to this and they're like, Season 2 of what? What are they talking about? We are heading back to the world of Avatar, The Last Airbender to discuss Book 2 Earth, which is just their fancy name for Season 2. They just did it fancy, so we're doing it too. We have to thank our patron Andi for forcing us back into this wonderful world. If you guys don't know, folks who pledge to us at the Doof Warrior level on Patreon, that's patreon.com/doofmedia, get to select a topic for us to do a show on. And Andi is so in love with Avatar that one episode wasn't enough, and they've asked us to come back. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to say goodbye to Game of Thrones in the only way we know how, guys. Shit-talking it mercilessly.
Yes, as is the tradition.
Yes, so that is the plan for this week's episode. And guys, let's not waste any more time. We got a lot to say about Avatar, I think. So let's jump right into Avatar Season 2, Book 2, Earth. And this is a little unprecedented, guys. At least for me and Matt, I think. Because, Matt, I don't think we've ever done like a show where we did a show and then left the thing and then came back to the thing the next season and we're like, oh, we're here to talk about this again. So I don't know what to do here.
Yeah, not with the show, certainly. We have done, the Deconstructing Directors series where we're basically tracking the progress of a director over the course of several different movies. So I think maybe some things are going to be similar here. And I think that there's definitely a lot of differences between Season 2 and Season 1. Like the tone, I think, is the main thing that jumps out to me. I just find that the tone of the second season is much more serious and dire. And like the first thing that jumps into my mind is in the first season, Aang is basically a kid. He's lighthearted. It's really hard to get him down. He has a few sad moments. He has a few angry moments, but usually he's like the pillar of impossible to get him down. It's kind of the heart of the team. And in this season, he just goes like pretty dark. And a lot of these episodes are pretty dark, actually. And I think that's, I don't know. I mean, I like it, obviously. It's just, it really kind of surprised me how much the tone was different.
Yeah. So did you liked that tone shift then? Did you like this season better? I guess is your overall thoughts on the season better?
I think overall, yeah. I think that there were one or two episodes in the season where I was almost like, this is weird. This is a weird episode. This is kind of I'm wondering if like a different animation team did this episode or something, because I'm just like, everything feels a little bit off. That was really only true for like one or two episodes. I'm not sure if I can remember the names of them, but maybe I'll look while we talk. But I thought we should go on the whole this season was better. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I'll give my overall thoughts and then we'll pass it off to the Avatar experts over here. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. I think I said last time that I wasn't ready to say I loved the show. Well, guys, I'm going to say a phrase I don't say very often. God. It's really rare for me. I loved this. I really did. And the interesting part about it for me is I feel like this was really built up. I think the show was built up for me because everyone talked about it glowingly. But then after we released the last episode, a lot of the comments we got were like, oh man, they liked it after the first season. I can't wait until they get into season 2 and 3 because that's when the show really gets good. And like that kind of expectation, I was like, uh-oh. And so like I think you're coming into the season with this idea of what this thing is going to be in your head. And like, you have an idea of what season 1 was. And then, so you're like thinking to yourself, well, what could they do in season 2 that like makes people say that kind of things? And I found that what they did really, when you get down to it, is they just did the thing they did in the first season, but they just did it a little better. And like, I came up with this complex metaphor in my head and it might not make any sense, but here we go. It's if the first season was like building a house, this season they built the same house again, only the measurements were a little tighter. The screws were a little tighter. The cuts were a little sharper. It's just the same house, but just built a little bit better. And the thing about a show like this is when you make those small incremental improvements across the board, the end product is like so much better. Like little tweaks here and there, little sharper, tighter screws here and there make a vastly better overall product. And that's what I felt like this season of the show was to me.
I think one of the things that really makes season 2 stand out is season 1 kind of, it's not formulaic, but it does establish a bit of a pattern where the gang flies from one town to the next town and they solve a mystery or they, help out some locals or whatever it is. And then they kind of fly on, where season 2 really experiments and pushes with what you can really do in a 20 to 30 minute episodic children's show. Obviously the second half of the season is completely different in that sense. It takes place mainly in one place and the show is mixed up a bit, but even throughout the first half of the season you have episodes like Zuko Alone, which are just completely different to the rest of the show. I think that's what makes it stand out in my mind.
Yeah, I feel like over the course of this season, it transfers into being like a character-driven drama rather than, like you said, more of a formulaic kids show. Because ultimately the things that are happening are driven by the decisions the characters are making and not by like. I mean, the whole first season was like we have to master all the elements so that you can defeat the Fire Lord and Avatar shit. And now it's all about what the characters need, and the whole like you said, the whole last half of the season is dominated by Aang trying to get Appa back, basically, which is this very like personal impetus that makes him he's angry and sad and then of course there's Zuko, where it transfers from the Zuko and Iroh plotline being about hunting the Avatar to being just like this deep and complex search for identity and meaning after being rejected by his nation, which only briefly touches on the Avatar.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I still think, even though the show is much less like traditional structure, I still think it does have a very kind of standard, like episodic nature to it. Like each of the episodes are still complete storylines within themselves, and I do think in this season they tie into the overall storyline a lot more because there's a lot more plot threads that are left over at the end of those episodes. But I still think like each 22-minute spot feels like a complete thing amongst itself. Like it has its own complete theme. It has a thing it's trying to do. It accomplishes that thing while also advancing the overall storyline.
Yeah, well, they're like chapters in the journey almost in the second half. Like you have, say, the episode The Serpent's Pass, where they're just crossing the Serpent's Pass, and then that one immediately leads into the drill. And so obviously then the drill is its own sort of episode, but they're tied together a lot more fluidly rather than just between the episodes flying on Upper for a couple of days and now landing in a new town.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that's weird with those two episodes is on my Blu-ray, they were linked together. And I don't know why. Like they were linked under something called like, it was a different title. Like it was
Secret
called
of
like
the Fire Nation?
Yeah, Secret of the Fire Nation. I was like, I don't know why it did that.
I think in some regions they were released as a two-parter under the name Secret of the Fire Nation,
yeah,
which I don't understand at all, but whatever.
Yeah, because I mean they still definitely had the episode title on the title screen, but I noticed it finished The Serpent's Pass and went right into the next one without me having to select it, and I was like, huh, okay, sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I think season 2 really just steps up from season 1 in a lot of ways, right? I want to kind of touch on the animation in season 2, just because, you know, obviously season 1 isn't bad animation, but in season 2, everything just becomes a lot more pretty in my opinion, right? Like there are a lot more really nice, like animated shots and beautiful kind of areas and all kinds of weird things that really spice it up a lot more in season 2 from a technical perspective as well.
Yeah. I mean, even just like still images of, you know, like a building or like a throne or whatever, it'll be just like this beautifully ornate setting, right? Like there's the movement animations, which I think have been great all along, and then there's like the setting drawings, which I think I agree are really striking in this season. It's just really beautifully art directed.
I will say, I think one thing season 1 did a bit more than season 2 is had sort of cool, like unique and experimental bits. So the one that's jumping to my mind is, and I don't think we talked about this last episode, but the finale of season 1, when there's the eclipse and everything goes black and white, but every time the firebenders use fire, the bits around the fire become color, and it's like a really cool effect. It's possibly one of my favorites in the whole series, and season 2 doesn't have as much of that, but then obviously you're right, in general the normal animation is so much better that it's probably like a worthwhile trade-off.
Yeah. Kids today, man, they got it so good. And by, you know, and by kids today, I mean kids, 15 years ago now?
Right, yeah. You know, one thing I noticed about the animation that I had mixed feelings about, I guess it wasn't really the animation, but it was just kind of a choice that they've made, is that in the first season, it was like the bending was tied to their movements in a way that felt very like restricted in a good way. Like, well, okay, by contrast, in season 2, it just seems like if you're a bender, you just have like arbitrary telekinesis. And that made it seem a little bit less like, oh, they're fighting with limitations. Like if you're basically Aang just has like, Phoenix level telekinesis over his surroundings, and it's like, okay, well, that's cool, but it makes him almost too powerful. This is like one of my literally only moments in the story where I was like, oh, I wish they hadn't pushed it that far, or at least saved that for later. I don't know. Did you guys feel similarly at all?
No.
I would say part of it is probably that they're hanging around with more powerful benders in this season a lot more. Like, someone like Toph is incredibly good at earthbending, and Aang's getting better. So there's like, I think the ability to manipulate the elements with less sort of physical movement, I guess. But Yeah, I don't know. I never really felt like the Last Airbender was a culprit of overpowering some of the bending too much.
Yeah, I mean, I still felt like there were distinct movements that went along with the bending. I think what it did, and what I actually liked about it, is that the show constantly reinvents itself and like comes up with new things for each of the characters to do with the bending. I like action movies as much as the next guy, but I just like kind of animated anime-esque action is never like something that like I get really excited about. But one of the things that I think the show did really well was, especially this season, is each of the encounters, each of the action set pieces, characters are doing different things and they're using the powers in different ways. Like I loved like in the final season when Zuko is fighting Katara. Sorry, they're like both using whips kind of, but like it's fire whip versus water whip, and I just thought that was like, I think Katara's skill in bending has gotten so crazy and she's constantly finding new interesting things of doing with it, and I felt like that kept the scenes from getting dull to me.
Yeah, I mean I definitely like the scene where they basically storm the Earth Castle and basically almost entirely with earth bending. I guess they're using some water bending and air bending too, but like they just bulldoze through everyone, and it's in a way that feels very like, oh, that's clever. Like unless you're also a wizard yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to like outmaneuver these clever like sudden movements of the earth around you. So.
I do think some suspension of disbelief has to be thrown up to be like, wait, these kids are like the best at this?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it makes sense for Aang. It makes sense for Aang for sure. But like, and I think Toph is great. I love her, and we're going to talk all about her. And I like Katara a lot too. But it's like, really, these like are like professionals like that have been doing this for 30 years. They're just kicking their, okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Let's talk about Toph, because Toph is great.
Yeah. So there's such a risk, I think, especially in a show that's successful in introducing a new character, because you have to slot them in well enough to where they don't disrupt the kind of emotional core of our, in this case, our trinity of characters. And I think they nailed that with Toph. I really think they do. I think, first of all, she's a really interesting character in her own right. And I just think she slots very well into the dynamic of the group in interesting ways, but ways that they're not going to stick with the whole time. Like when Toph first joined the group, she had this kind of natural antagonism with Katara a little bit, and they pushed back and forth a little bit, but that doesn't continue throughout the whole season. That's not going to be like their thing is their fighting. That eventually gets resolved in a very satisfactory way, and they kind of ping off each other in different ways. I think that's what makes this group so great, and Toph is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, they take the time to give her like interactions with each of the other characters one-on-one, such that you understand who she is relative to them, which your monkey brain needs in order to map out her social place, which is good writing.
I like Toph as she's pricklier than all the other members of Team Avatar as well, which is, it just adds a bit of a different dynamic, because she is the one who can like be a bit rough and tumble and kind of bounce off of things in less expected ways.
Yeah, I agree with that. And she's I like making a blind character is a really cool decision. And I mean, not just to talk about her blindness as like a trait, but I like how she's a very powerful earthbender, but she's also got some built-in limitations that like Matt was talking about. Maybe if you start feeling like the bending is too powerful, Toph has limits to what she can do. Like I loved, she's on sand and just sucks now. Like she's just not, she can't do anything there.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great idea. And I love how the show treats her blindness, because like it's just very matter of fact with it, but it's not afraid to tell jokes about it. Like I loved the recurring Toph and Sokka jokes where he's like mentions like, why can't you see that or something?
Yeah. Or she just like, well, I think it looks great. And he's like, oh, thanks. Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. And it's like, I think it's never, the smart thing about those jokes is they're never at the expense of Toph. So they're like never making fun of her blindness. They're just using her blindness to make fun of other people.
Yeah, usually
and
Sokka.
I think, usually Sokka, because Sokka's the butt of all the jokes. And I think that's great. I think that's a brilliant way to do it. It works really well.
Yeah. Speaking of Toph, like blindness moments, I love the setup and payoff of her saying that she can tell when people are lying, and then as they're running away from Jet, and then he says, "I'll be fine." She's like, "He's lying," and then you're like, "Oh, show, you killed me."
That reminds me, I did not write Jet down in a note, and now I'm adding a note to talk about Jet because we got to talk about Jet.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Jet. I mean, he's
Yeah.
introduced in season 1, right?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, oh, this is just a standalone thing. It's fine.
Yeah, throwaway character.
Yeah, and then it's very sudden that they bring him back, and they bring him back in a really cool way. He's like kind of supposed to be this reformed guy, and he goes a little nuts when he finds out that they're firebenders. And the frustrating part about it is like he's right. Like that's like there's this character who was awful and terrible and screwed up, and he's trying to get a fresh start, and he meets this guy that's also trying to get a fresh start, and it's like, oh look, our characters are going to change together and it's going to be wonderful. And then he learns a thing about them and he can't let that go. So it's both part of his change as a character, but also it's a little bit of the old Jet coming back in. And like it's tragic in a way because you're like watching him go crazy and be pulled away by guards, and you're like, but he's right though.
Speaking of tragic, I mean, the whole season has this heavy theme of no one is willing to give Zuko an inch.
Oh my god!
Like, I mean, the Zuko alone episode is probably the I was going to say the culmination, but it actually comes fairly early in the season.
Do you mean when they make Shane the children's story? They basically just redo Shane.
Shane for children. But the point is, like, after he reveals himself to be a firebender, they just completely reject him. There's not even like dialogue. Oh, I guess there's a little bit of dialogue, but the point is, everyone completely judges and rejects him for being a firebender. Like the closest thing he gets to any kind of slack is like after he's had his like fever transformation and he talks to Katara, but then I think he's already, I mean, we can talk about his kind of backslide, which made me very angry at the time, but I think it's consistent and it's good storytelling. It makes you angry. You're not angry at the show. You're angry at Zuko. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're disappointed in him.
Yes.
You're so disappointed in him.
Just like Iroh.
Well, it's anger. It's anger they were going for. Like the writers wanted you to be like, no, you idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
You were so close.
Are you saying that this children's show has like this character heading towards a redemption arc, and then like at the last second, seemingly out of nowhere, rejects his redemption arc, but like they earned it? Is that what you're saying?
And then rides all the way back to King's Landing? What? I'm not talking about anything.
I think we spent a lot of time talking about Zuko in the last season, and I want to spend a lot of time talking about him in this season as well. Maybe more, because I think he's incredible. And I think what they're doing with this character is incredible, and what they're willing to try to do with this character is great. Like, I mean, very early in the season, he has, I forget which show, I think it's maybe in the second episode, the Cave of Two Lovers one, where he's like, he steals it's not a horse. What is it? It's like an
ostrich
like a weird
thing.
Whatever. Yeah.
Ostrich horse.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Like he has this moment where he's with these people, and like he bonds with this other woman who's been abused by the Fire Nation, and then at the end of the episode, he takes the horse anyway, even though his uncle tells him not to. And then like you see him throughout this whole season, kind of culminating in the end of the show where he chooses to let Appa go. He could have used him to track down the Avatar, and that's like, oh my god, like he didn't steal the animal this time. He let the animal free, and that's like a perfect transition. And yeah, as you said, Matt, to then see him go back on that at the end is heartbreaking. But like you said, like you can see it. Like they build it up so well. Like the scene where he's there with Azula and she's telling him, I am going to give you everything you ever wanted. It's right here. All you have to do is reach out your hand and take it. Even though we, the audience, know, and in some way he knows that that's bullshit, because again, we're contrasting it with the beginning of the season where his sister said more or less the same thing and was lying to him. She's clearly lying to him again, but it doesn't matter because he wants it so much. That's the one thing he wants more than anything, and the show has taken time to show how much he wants it. So as much as we've seen him improved, as much as we've seen him get better, at the end, even when you're mad at him, you're like, yeah, I get it, man. You're just not quite there yet. I get it.
And I just have to talk about Azula because I love her as a character so much, but I also particularly love how well, like, she's mostly introduced, I think, to contrast Zuko in so many ways, because she's the opposite. She's the prodigy. Everything tends to go her way all the time, and Zuko has really been set up since halfway through the first season as this struggler who has to earn every inch, whereas everything just comes naturally to Azula. And so watching her and him interact throughout the season is just fantastic and brings out so much in both of them.
Plus she's got blue fire, the lightning.
Yeah, she's just very competent. She's just a very terrifying, competent villain, which is great.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that they, like, in the flashbacks when they were young, you kind of understand where her cruelty comes from, because like until she proved herself as confident, there was a little bit of this like, oh, you're the girl, like this isn't what you're supposed to do. And so there's a little bit of that, like pushing her on and motivating her. And yes, it turns her into a total jerk, but I like that they sprinkled that in there a little bit. So while you don't agree with her, you understand her a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's true for Zuko as well. The more you see of how those two were raised, the more you're like, well, I mean,
right.
It could have been worse, especially for Zuko.
Turns out Mark Hamill, not a good person.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we learn what happened to Zuko's mother. I mean, kind of.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
And it kind of all just falls into place. Zuko is very tragic.
Yeah.
Did we know, I can't remember, did we know about Iroh's son in the first season? Or is this where we learn about his...
It's kind of alluded to. I think like it's sort of touched on, and there's like they mentioned Ba Sing Se and some stuff there, but I think there's more concrete details laid out in this season.
Oh, that was devastating. And now it makes you completely understand why he's kind of like so protective and so loving of Zuko. Like I think like we've been talking about how great Zuko is. Iroh is this character that is kind of in the background most of the time, but I think he's incredible. Like we've seen this guy go from just like the goofy kind of comic relief character on that side of the story to this really like wonderful, warm-hearted, caring, wise person who genuinely loves their nephew and will do anything to try to help him. Like seeing Iroh like take to living in the city and like getting to open his tea shop and like maybe finding peace and contentment, not just for himself, but also seeing in Zuko that like he's finally finding contentment and finding a place. Like it makes the tragic ending hurt even more.
Right. Well, like it's so good, but it's also the worst part, because every time something good happens for them, you're like, oh no, they're so happy.
Yeah.
They're gonna lose all of this, because that's how stories work. What we were talking about Azula a second ago, and I always have to mention like the effect things have on my kids, and like one thing that the show is definitely doing, especially this season, is just like the sophistication of the character stuff is pretty much beyond my kids. And my kids are probably a little bit too young. They're younger than the target audience, but like you'll have stuff like Azula is using subterfuge to co-opt the Dai Li. And I'm just like, I can't explain this to my, like it's just like the layers of understanding people's motives and deception are a fairly mature level, right? Like, and I think that's cool. And I think that's why it appeals to adults, honestly.
Yeah. The moment of Azula and Long Feng kind of having their final confrontation in front of all the Daily, and Azula just completely takes him apart. Yeah, it's very intense.
Yeah, and I kind of want to frame that in something we talked about last time, which is how the show is like slowly revealing this idea of good and bad are not quite as simple as we thought they were. And I think that gets really, really emphasized this season with all the Earth Nation stuff, because this is like, I think we were kind of like prepared for this to be like the bastion of humanity, like the one good location left in the world. Like this place has survived. This place has resisted the evil Fire Nation coming forward. And we kind of quickly find that no, this place is corrupt. You got like a figurehead king, basically. You got a guy who's running things behind their back, lying to the people, brainwashing people to keep the masses calm. And like that is such a fascinating, wonderful wrinkle in this story, which was ostensibly fire people bad, everyone else good. Yay. I love that the show's willing to do that, and like the Earth Nation, the leaders of the Earth Nation become the bad guys for a not insignificant portion of this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that definitely makes it refreshing too, because I think that it would be a little bit boring if it was just like, we're gonna but keep fighting the Fire Nation. Like that would feel more like a kids show. This has a lot more dynamic nature to it. I mean, just the element of the brainwashing is fun.
Yeah. I do think the first season did that a little too much, in my opinion. Was like blah 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 conflict here, and now the Fire Nation's here. Oh shit! And this season did that a lot less. Now they still show up, like Azula and her two friends, like just happen to be places near the end of episodes to like escalate the conflict a little bit, and that's fine. But it's less than in the first season, where I felt like something bad's happened, and also there's a Fire Nation ship 2 meters away.
Yeah.
They just kind of did that. And I think that's a result of what you said, Matt. The whole Zuko is not really chasing them thing anymore. So
yeah, right. I mean, it basically we can't. I mean, I guess at the risk of repeating what I said a minute ago, like instead of it being a story where it's alternating between, you know, Team Avatar, who are obviously the good guys who are going around solving Scooby-Doo mysteries and so forth, and Aang, who is basically Shredder except slightly more ambiguous. It's now Team Avatar, who are a lot less sure of what they're doing for much of the season. There's a lot more disagreement over what they should do. Generally speaking, like different characters will kind of take the fore in terms of what they like what the priorities for the team are at that moment.
And that's set up right in the first episode. Like the first episode's that one where they meet up with the Earth General, who decides to try and just start triggering the Avatar state and setting off. And that, I mean, you know, it's a little summary of the whole season in a way, that first episode, and it sets a lot of that up. Like, you know, you learn that the Earth Nation isn't necessarily just a good ally, and the Avatar state isn't an instant win. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah. And Matt was talking about how different the tone is, and I think that first episode does a really good job of setting that, because I remember finishing that episode and being like, "Oh, we're doing something a little different this season." Because I mean that is his win button, almost killing an entire city, someone being willing to sacrifice his best friend in order to trigger that, and like this is getting more complex, and this is getting a little darker and a little more serious for sure.
And like I was saying, you're alternating between that and then Zuko is now just like a side protagonist, where you're like, you want him to get over his stuff and succeed, and you want him to listen to Iroh, and like it's a completely different kind of conflict now, because it's like, okay, they're trying to survive, he's trying to like make his way in this world and figure out what he's here for, and then, you know, you get relatively little touches here and there on like what Azula is doing. In fact, I don't remember hardly any like Azula specific, you know, tracking plot.
There's only one episode that is an Azula specific tracking plot, which is the chase, where they're just being kind of chased by the three of them on lizards.
The fight at the end of that episode in the little ghost town desert thing is probably my favorite fight in terms of choreography in the whole show. Yeah. I love, particularly when it's just Zuko, Azula, and Aang, and it's sort of a free for all between the three of them throughout this town. I just love that scene. So much.
And the end of that fight also has like the first time you see like all four elements used against a bad guy. I thought that was really cool too, where they just kind of used their element beam.
Yeah. Oh, so if y'all aren't sad enough yet, can we talk about the Appa episode?
Let me go get the tissues. Heartbreaking.
I mean, it's just like it starts out, you're like, oh wow, they're really going for it, and then it just gets worse from there. It's just like, oh, let's see how sad and bedraggled and scared and traumatized we can make this poor animal. And then not even end the episode on a high note. He just gets captured by somebody else.
And I think the two addendums I have to that would be, so first of all, this also takes place right after the Tales of Ba Sing Se, which we'll probably talk about for a bit. But that episode also has some pretty depressing moments. So I watched those back to back, and it was like, my emotions. This is meant to be a kids show. And then like as you said, like Appa goes through so much in that episode, and obviously he's an animal. He can't speak, but he's better characterized in that episode and the show in general than like main characters in other kids shows. Like they do such a good job with it.
Yeah.
I think
obviously he's developed he's developed a fear of fire now, which is like considering we're about to enter book 3 fire and try and fight the Fire Lord. That's
good point.
I think the decision to have Appa be lost, in air quotes, stolen, I guess, is such an interesting one as well, because it really changes the dynamic of the show, because they've just been able to fly around for the whole series so far, and suddenly, in fact, finding the library in that episode took them, 3 minutes, and then the whole next episode is them being at danger of dying because they can't get out of this giant desert. Like, it really mixes it up and adds some different conflicts, which I think is a very clever decision.
You can kind of imagine them in the writer's room being like, we have all these ideas for stories, but the problem is Appa can be an I win button on those stories. So what do we do? And the solution becomes, we'll take him away. We'll have him get kidnapped. And in a lesser show, you just do that. You take him away. You have him get kidnapped. You do the stories you want to tell that require him not being there. And you've invented a motivation button for your protagonist. And then you find him, and they're reunited and they're happy, and you move on with the show. To do an episode where we get to find out what the animal was doing and what they've gone through is a thing that I don't think very many shows would do. And I think a lot of shows would be afraid of doing it, because if it doesn't work, it's a really bad episode. Because like you said, you're right. He doesn't talk. He doesn't emote quite like the human characters do. But it relies on knowing that your audience is emotionally invested in this character and being able to tell the story in an interesting way. And I think that's exactly what that episode does.
Yeah.
It does so much as well, because obviously there's a bit of kind of character development for Suki, who's been a bit of a B character throughout this season. Mm-hmm. Azula gets a bit of development, but we also meet Guru Patik, who really is only in one episode later on. And so if it had just been like let's just go fly and meet this guru for one episode and then go home again, it would have been very kind of out of place and wouldn't have made sense. But they're able to kind of set up a few of these things in this very incredible episode and then have them play off again later, which I think it's surprisingly dense in how much things it sets up for the end of the season as well.
Actually, I really like the bit with Suki and Azula in Appa's episode, because maybe this wouldn't work on people who are smarter than me, but I definitely remember the first time. It's like 2 episodes later when the Earth King finds out that the Kyoshi warriors are coming to visit him. He's like, okay, let them in. And then there's the big reveal that it's actually Azula, May, and Ty Lee. And there's that moment where you're like, oh, no. Oh, of course, because in Appa's episode, like, we saw them beat them, and it's like a little delivery on something that happened in Upper's episode, which is fantastic.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of moments of setting up future stuff in that episode, kind of almost in the background. You don't even realize you're being set up for something.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. Like, it's interesting because when you look at the writing credits, it's like they're all written by like it's like a rotating list of people writing them. But it's just interesting how everything is really beautifully tied together, such that you just know that there was a lot of communication and planning between these people. I don't see how else they could have done it, honestly.
Yeah, usually the way writers' rooms work, and I don't know if that's specific to the show or not, but usually they break the stories as a group, and then each week a specific writer is like responsible for actually going out and putting words on the page. So it usually is a group effort, but the person who's listed as the writer is the one that actually went and made and wrote the script. So it would not surprise me if this is a very traditional writer's room. And I don't know how many cartoons have writers' rooms like that, you know? Like, that's not something people really talk about. I would not be surprised if this had an unusual writer's room for an animated show.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's this tight 3-season, actual propulsive storytelling with a beginning, middle, and end, apparently. I mean, I assume the story ends in season 3, otherwise I'll be confused. Whereas most kids shows are just like, all right, let's just keep making these until we get canceled.
And this is definitely the Empire Strikes Back of our trilogy. True. For sure, right? Like the end of the season ends with the biggest nation standing on Earth falling. And
with the Fire Nation have essentially won the war at this point.
Right. And there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I kind of want to talk about the guru and the chakra stuff, because from a structural perspective, I think that was really brilliant, because what it does is we're here at the end of the second of 3 acts, and what we're doing with the opening of the chakras is we're kind of showing the audience, here's what Aang's shit is. Like, here's Aang's problems. Like, we just by the idea of like, oh, you're being blocked by guilt here, you're being blocked by shame here. We're going through not just this season, but both seasons, and saying, here's the stuff that our character's going through, and here's the stuff that our character has been going through this whole show. And here's an opportunity for us to remind him and the audience of what this stuff is and how he's going to get through it. I think that was I really loved it. I was watching this. I was like, this is a really great way of like not doing a clip show episode, but kind of doing a clip show episode.
It's a fantastic device for a bit of a character deep dive as well. Like they use it for both, and I think that's why it works. Is it's a deep dive into Aang's character, as well as helpfully reminding us of some of the stuff that's happened in the past.
It's also interesting that Aang is kind of very much like Empire. Actually, he's unwilling to go the full distance that his guru wants him to.
He basically runs away from Dagobah.
He runs away from Dagobah, and then he gets his hand cut off.
Wait, have you seen season 3?
But like, which interestingly parallels Zuko and Zuko's inability to basically complete his transformation, right? Like, both of them have like a partial transformation, which they can't bring themselves to go through with, and then they kind of walk back and end up in a place that's almost worse than it was before they even tried.
Yeah, well, and I think the most interesting part of that to me, and I don't know what season 3 is going to do with this, but like at the very end, he like realizes that he's like he the final step is to let go of your earthly attachments, right? And that's Katara for him, and he can't do that. And then at the end of the show, the end of the final episode, he willingly does that. He sees her fighting and he lets her go and goes Avatar state, and then it's like immediately taken out, like immediately. And I'm very curious what the show is trying to say through that, because like I joked about it in the introduction, but there's this weird thing where like he's kind of like, you want me to give up the people I care about? That doesn't seem right. And you have Iroh like telling him, like when he's kind of discussing it with Iroh, and Iroh's like, power is not all that there is. There's more important things out there than power. And then you have this moment where he finally does that. He does what the guru wanted him to do, goes Avatar state, and the show immediately punishes him for it. So I'm really curious what they're doing with this, if they're doing something interesting at all, or if I'm just overthinking it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, thanks for drawing that out. I think that's exactly because like I was actually I was kind of looking at the show askance when they were when the guru was telling him let go of your attachments, because like this is something that I've thought about myself, and I've been like, yeah, I like my attachments. I choose my attachments. I would rather have them than not have them. And I actually think Aang's right. So I'm like, okay, is the show sort of going to like metaphysically imply that Aang is making the wrong choice by running away? And then I actually thought it was really great that they had Iroh be like, yeah, it's just human of you to want to be attached to people, and there's always some other way. And I thought that was great. I love that.
So many shows like this use the group, the team, as the strength of the protagonist, right? Like the reason why, going back to Buffy again, the reason why Buffy is so great is not only because of her, but because of the team she surrounds herself with. And I really think that seems to be what they're doing with Aang in this show. The reason why Aang is the Avatar, he's amazing, he's powerful, but the reason why Aang continues to live and continues to grow and change and get better is because of his attachments to the people around him, because of Katara, because of these people. And so it did like, I was very interested when they were like, no, just give this is not important, get rid of those. And I was like, interesting. That's not what I would expect the show to do. And so to me it does seem like they're doing something a little more complex with that.
Yeah, well, and also there's the risk when you see something like that you're like, oh, they're kind of lazily injecting like superficial Eastern philosophy because it's a show about martial arts and wax on, wax off, whatever. but like they actually have like a thesis around it, and it's coherent, and I like it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the theme of
no comment
following your duty. Well, yeah, we can't comment on it too much, but I think the theme of following your duty versus being happy as a goal in and of itself is I think one of the best ones for me in this season. I mean, there's the moment where Iroh is confronting Zuko in like Appa's cage and asking him, hey, why are you following this prescribed purpose to you? Why can't you just find something that makes you happy? It's very deep things to hit in this show.
Well, and there's the whole thread throughout that of what is your destiny? Like Zuko's like, it's my destiny or whatever, and Iroh has to hit him with like, well, who decides that? Which is a big sort of thread, and it's a deep topic, I think, to hit.
I like that moment because Iroh is just furious with him. Like, it's really interesting because Iroh kind of almost goes too far with the lecturing. Like, I don't know. I thought it was an interesting way of spinning that situation where Iroh is not actually being like the high ground, like I'm going to give you a calm, wise sermon. He's yelling at him. He's like, I'm sick of your shit, Zuko. He's kind of going off on him, right? And it's not too long after that Zuko rejects him, and basically you get the sense that Iroh has kind of not lost hope in him, but definitely like is extremely disappointed.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with Iroh next year. I mean, I'm excited what they're going to do with all the characters next year, but that ending in particular, like especially you can see how much he's put in Zuko that he feels like he failed his son in, right? And I think part of that is getting part of that chase what makes you happy and not what your destiny is because his son chased his responsibility, chased his purpose, and he chased it to his grave. And so he's trying to save Zuko from that same fate. And he failed. I mean, not him. I don't think we can blame Iroh for any of this, but he's going to feel like that. He's going to feel like I failed him and history is going to repeat itself. And so I'm really excited about where they're going with that. And I can't believe we're talking about things this complicated in a show for children.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot to love about this season. Yeah,
I don't even really advertise this as a show for children anymore. As far as I'm concerned, this is possibly even more so just a show for adults. I just think this is a great show.
It's a show for humans.
Yeah,
there you go.
Which is really mean to the non-humans out there. I apologize.
And for flying bison.
And
oh my god, the hybrid animals. I don't know like who in the writing process was like, why don't we do this?
Well,
it'll be cool.
Yeah, my favorite was the saber-toothed moose lion for obvious reasons. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, I agree. It's just it's just a nice bit of decoration on the world. Like it adds nothing except like a bit of a cool factor, I guess. Like yeah, it's great.
It's just fun, and it sells the otherworldliness of the world. It allows them to be goofy. I liked the Panthers that were like also just like house cats as well.
Yeah, the cat panther things.
Yeah,
monkey panther thing.
And obviously the Earth King who has the bear, and they're all baffled by the fact that it's just a bear.
The Earth King. Oh gosh.
I have one more thing I want to touch on here, I think, which is...
Sure.
I looked this up before we recorded because I was curious if the show copped any criticism for only really having one female character in the first season. But, man, it really bulks out the diverse like representation in season 2.
Yeah.
Like all the new main characters introduced are all different women, and it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're all fascinating characters as well. I mean, I still don't know how I feel about Azula's henchwomen. I mean, I don't dislike them, but I'm not like super into them either.
I think it's fair to say they didn't get a huge amount of time or development in this season.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if we're going to get a Waldo-esque backstory for each of them, where we realize that they're deep and complex and care about them and want them to succeed in their own way.
I mean, probably.
Yeah.
No comment.
So we haven't really talked about the Tales of Ba Sing Se, which I think alongside Zuko Alone and Appa's Lost Days is one of the standalone episodes.
Sure. Yeah.
I just wanted to hear what you guys thought about that one.
So I think for a show like this to have the confidence to decide we're just going to kind of do a different kind of episode where we barely move the plot forward, but we just spend some time with our characters. I think the confidence to do that is incredible. And I thought I was not expecting it. I didn't know what was going on. When the first title screen for the first vignette pops up, I'm like, wait, what? What is this? But it was just written, I think, with so much confidence in what we were going to do. And like, I don't like all the little vignettes the same. I like some more than others. I actually think Aang's is probably the weakest, which is surprising to me because I like Aang a lot, but, I think it's fascinating and wonderful. And I mean, like Iroh's, of course, the moment where they honor Mako, which is just this beautiful, like almost weeping moment that I think was just fantastic. And I knew he passed away during the season. I didn't know exactly when. And so that threw me off guard. I was not expecting that. And it just like knocked me over.
And again, to kind of complement Appa's one, there's also like a Momo vignette, which works surprisingly well. I think going to what you were saying about confidence, again, the confidence to give Momo, who is like even more so than Appa, just a little jokey companion, his own 5-minute vignette is they do it so well.
Yeah, and I was impressed, like, again, speaking of the tone of this season and the tone of this episode in particular, when we started Momo's part and it becomes clear that he's going to be looking for Appa. I was like, oh, this is cute. Like Momo is going to be the one who finds Appa. That's clever. I like that. But then it ends up being, I mean, it's just as cute, right? But then it ends up being bittersweet because he finds evidence that Appa is in the town, but he doesn't find Appa. It's almost like Appa's just disappeared into thin air, and it's like it leaves you even sadder. And then that actually leads into the next episode, which is Appa's Lost Days, and you learn how he got to the town, right? So and then of course there's a couple of different kind of sad, but speaking of like confidence and just like deftness in managing tone, I'm always impressed when any kind of property is able to kind of balance comic tones with tragic tones, which they definitely do here, where like the Tale of Sokka in the middle of this is this like genuinely funny. Like it could be really cringy, right? Like it could be stupid and terrible, but it would I thought it was hilarious and great, and it single-handedly makes you like Sokka just a little bit more. And then you go from there into the tale of Zuko, where Zuko goes on a date, which we know from Undertale is the best way to make you love a character.
Oh my God.
It's so adorable, man.
And I actually think Zuko's date kind of telegraphs his lack of redemption at the end, right? I think like looking on it now that I've seen the entire season, he's like goes on this wonderful thing, and it's like this girl is like totally enraptured by him, and it's like a chance for happiness and contentment, and then of course right after that kiss he pulls away and says it's complicated and runs away, and it's like he's right there, he's so close, and then no. And I think that like it's really, I love Zuko so much, and I just want him to be okay. That's like, I just want him to be okay. And like I think that scene kind of ends on a happy note, because you have Iroh kind of happily smiling at the end because he's like seeing a change in his adopted son, basically. But he's still not quite there yet, and I have no doubt that we're gonna get there with this character by the end of the third season. I really think we are gonna get there. But I love that the show is willing to make that hard and make it a struggle, and we see that struggle in this date, and then we see that same struggle pay out by the end of the season in a very disappointing way. But I think we're gonna get there. I'm still hoping for Zuko.
Me too. I'm sure everything will end up just fine.
Yeah, it'll be great. But yeah, no, I mean, I think the episode is fantastic. Like they kind of come up with a quick explanation for why it's like we have to wait for the Earth King summons. We have time to kill, and therefore we're just kind of waiting. And so we're gonna do this. And but it works. It just really does. It's like it's amazing. How many are there in this? Like 5 or 6 vignettes.
Mm-hmm.
6.
In 22 minutes. Like, and they're all like complete stories that feel fulfilling.
Yeah, that's incredible. Now that you say it that way, I never quite put that together. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I guess one more, like one final note that I had about the difference between how this season felt and how the last one felt is that this just feels less cartoony. And I think what I mean by that is like I feel like everyone from the artists to the writers to the voice actors got direction to like tone it down and bring it to a more real, grounded place. Like Zuko is less doing the like I will get the Avatar and is like he's a person. Iroh is less of like a comic kind of head in the clouds detached guy, and he actually has like his needs and his desires. Like even Sokka, interestingly, has like several moments in this season where he's basically the leader. Like he's taking he's spearheading an initiative. He wants to get this data about the Fire Nation back to people who can use it to, attack during the eclipse. It's like this is his little project. He's very serious about it. And yeah, he still is comic often, but he has his own serious, character internal drama, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And pretty much everybody does.
And Aang is another one. Like you already sort of touched on this, but Aang in season 1, Aang was like the goofy kid who had moments of like, serious emotional turmoil. Whereas like this season, between losing Appa and the challenges he faces trying to get his head around earthbending and stuff, it's very much a much more humbling season for Aang. For sure.
Yeah, I mean my other note is the secret of the season is make Aang lovable, arrow pointing to hurt him, arrow pointing to good storytelling. Because that's basically what they've done, right? Is they've lulled you into loving this character and wanting the best for him, and then most of the season is really just torturing Aang, right?
Yeah. And I like that, like in the first season, he learned waterbending and he like picked it up really quick, and they used that as a way to show the non-Avatar people's jealousness of the power of the Avatar. And I thought that was really cool. In this season with earthbending, they used it to show how being that skilled guy who just gets things really quickly can cause you to struggle when you come up against something that is really hard for you. And I loved him trying to learn earthbending and the struggle he had with it, because it was so different from the way he does things normally. I thought that was a really great way of doing it. And then we have, like in the back of our minds, we have firebending, and we have a character who has said that they refuse to firebend now, because that the one most shameful moment, as we learned in the Chakra episode, one of the most shameful moments in his life is when he burned Katara with his firebending, and he just refuses to do it now. but we know he's going to have to. And that's what's coming up next season. Like, he's going to have to master that. And I think that's so great. I love it. Like, I'm so fascinated by that, and how he's using these him learning the different elements as a way to explore different aspects of his character and his personality. I think that's so fantastic.
I mean, that's what I love about like the four elements in this world overall, is this concept of how they're linked to certain personality traits in a way. And so, like Aang was an airbender. Like, the big reason he struggles with earthbending is because earthbending is very much the opposite of airbending, which is, where he was raised. And so he struggles with this different sort of personality type that is sort of necessary to do that. And we've seen, waterbenders are very sort of flexible and adaptive, and firebenders are very strong-willed and sort of aggro, I guess. I love it.
Yeah,
I think that leads into my favorite moment of this season, which is the culmination of the B plot in Bitter Work, the episode where Aang's learning earthbending. The B plot in that is Iroh teaching Zuko more about the elements and teaching him to redirect lightning. And then this episode ends with Zuko yelling at a storm on the top of a mountain, which I think is, I don't know, just a very emotionally intense moment that really hits me every time I watch this show, because it's a perfect combination of his kind of desperation to be who he thinks he should be.
And you know what I love about that is they didn't bring it back yet. Like, he like one of the things he's learning is how to redirect the lightning that's sent at you, and we don't see him do it there, because that's just an emotional moment for him. And I was thinking, like, are we going to see him try to do this to his sister by the end of the season? And I'm not saying that he's not going to do that eventually. I think that's where we're going. But I like that we're taking our time with this. I think that's really cool. I like it a lot.
I also think that episode has probably my favorite line in almost the whole show, which is that bit where Zuko approaches Iroh and he's like, I need to learn to take out Azula, and I know you're going to say she's my sister and we should learn to get along, and Iroh's just like, nah, she's crazy and she needs to go down. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I want to talk about metal bending a little bit, because that was something in the back of my mind that I was like, well, metal is just earth,
right?
What? And then they did that exact thing.
It was glorious.
Yeah,
I think that's really the strength of this show, is it somehow keeps, I mean, not somehow, obviously it's talent and creativity, but it keeps things so fresh in so many different ways. I mean, Toph learning metal bending obviously becomes quite important later on. She is able to escape from prison and she's able to do all kinds of cool metal bending stuff, and it just is like, man, this is so awesome.
And then she gets to say, I am the best earthbender in the world. And like, that is kind of cartoony anime stuff there, but it works with Toph because Toph is such a
she's like that,
ridiculous character like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's built up to as well. Like, she, it's sort of earned, I think. Which helps. You
buy her as being that competent because she's basically going about it in a different way than all the other earthbenders do, and I think that's one where, like, I think that all setups have an expiration date, and I think that one nailed it in terms of if they had waited like until next season to pay off the metal bending red hair Chekhov's gun, it might not have landed as well. So I thought this is perfect.
Actually, speaking of Toph's uniqueness in bending, just to carry on from a bit of a conversation we had in last season's episode, so all of Toph's choreography actually uses a different type of martial arts to the rest of earthbending, which is nice little touch. Yeah, so I had to Google it, but it uses praying mantis. So all of Toph's moves are actually very uniquely hers, which is always something I really liked about her sort of self-taught earthbending skills.
That's awesome. And you can,
that's really cool.
What's funny is I didn't know that, but like what I did notice was like that her stance is always this very, like, even when she's just walking around with the other characters, she's kind of folded into herself, and like her head is at like an angle, and her eyes are basically level, like, because obviously she's blind, she's reacting to everything completely differently than everyone else is.
Yeah. And
that's just a cool like touch that they consistently do in all the scenes that she's in.
Yeah, just like with how all the different martial arts stances were different across the bending. That is something I didn't like consciously notice, But the second you said that, I was like, yep, I see it in my head. I absolutely see that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and it also just kind of makes her seem more badass that like she just doesn't move very much, but causes a lot of impact when she does. So yeah. It's good stuff.
All right. Do we have anything more we want to say about season 2 of Avatar?
I guess I'm curious what everyone's kind of favorite moments from the season were to round out.
Matt, you go first.
I mean, I love the like the introduction of Toph. I wouldn't call it a moment, but like I thought that I was like very happy with the direction the show was going with this new character, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be fun. Let me think. I definitely. Yeah, I'm kind of just flipping through things in my head here. I mean, the set
too many to pick.
The sad moments.
It's a tough question because it's such a diverse season. I'd say my favorite fight scene, as I've already mentioned, was that one at the end of the chase. But my favorite episode would have to be Upper's Lost Days. Like it's like asking what someone's favorite movie is. Like there's so many different factors.
Yeah, right. Because you could say that your favorites are like the sad moments, or you could say their favorites are like the badass moments. And I think everything they're trying to do works so well. It is hard to just pick one. Yeah. I don't know.
I really liked the Zuko alone episode. I don't know if I can shrink down to a moment in that episode. Maybe the end, what we talked about, where he reveals himself a firebender to save them, and they just turn on him immediately, because that's so heartbreaking and accurate that I thought it was fantastic. But I thought that episode was just so good. So good. And like, it's weird because I'm usually the guy in these kind of shows that is like all about the protagonist. It's like the protagonist is my favorite character. I love them. Redemption arcs are cool and all, and I like seeing them, but I don't care about them as much as the other stuff. But this show has won me over with Zuko arc. It really has. I think it's doing miraculous things with this character, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because it's debatable whether, like, it certainly looks and feels like a redemption arc, but it's debatable whether it's actually a redemption arc, because all he's doing is doing his duty to his family and doing what he was raised to do and what he's been told he's supposed to do his whole life. So like it's more of I guess it's a kind of redemption. It's a kind of redemption that feels a lot more organic than like you butchered your whole family and now you're going to get redemption. Like, no, you're not actually. But Zuko can be redeemed because he's sort of not responsible for why he is the way he is.
Yeah, I guess redemption might be the wrong word there. You're right. I mean, it's just like, it's more finding yourself.
Yeah, I don't have a better word, but yeah.
I think Aang and Zuko, particularly in this season, both deal a lot with like the concept of choosing your own destiny versus having destiny forced on you, and growing up as well. I think is something they're both dealing with, and that's obviously intertwined with deciding your path in life. And I think that's why they work so well as sort of the protagonist and Drutana. What's the word for the? I've forgotten the word for like a secondary protagonist. But that's almost what I'd call Zuko in this season. He mirrors Aang in so many ways really well.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know if this is a official piece of jargon, but I've heard the term contagonist used to mean basically the role that Vader takes in Return of the Jedi, where he's like Vader in Jedi is not actually the antagonist. The Emperor is.
I mean, I think the technical definition is deuteragonist. It's really hard to pronounce.
That is the word I was looking for. Yeah. Yes, that's the word I was trying to find.
But yes, I think Matt's word is right as well. It's not a word that's used very often, and probably because it's so hard to pronounce. But
yeah, well, I'm not. But I don't know if mine is. I know I read mine somewhere, but I'm not sure if the person who was talking about it had just made it up or not. So,
yeah. What? Okay, so one more thing I want to mention, really quick. I promise. Sokka has this moment with his father at the end of the season, and I think it's wonderful. Like Sokka, like he's definitely going through an arc in the show and definitely in the season as well. But it is much more backgrounded a little bit. He's not the main character. He's one of many side characters. But this moment where we see him finally get to meet up with his father. Then he has this moment where his father calls him a man, says, "Men, get to the boats." And he's like, "What about me, Dad?" And it's like, "Did you hear me? Men, get to the boats." And it's like this moment of, oh my God. Like he's finally just been honored by the man that he looks up to so much. And then just as he's about to join the war with his people, the thing he's always wanted to do, Aang shows up and is like, Katara's in trouble. And we don't even, it's really clever. We don't even see Sokka make the decision, right? It's just like Aang lands and Sokka's like, this can't be good. And then we cut to him flying away with him and leaving his father to go help out his friend. And I love that it's just like the show doesn't even make it a choice because of course Sokka's going to go. Like, of course he's going to go with this to get his sister. Like, that's just what he's going to do. Yeah. And to turn away from, being with his dad and being fighting that war with this man that he's looked up to so much and wanted to be with so much is just this wonderful moment. And they even cut to his father who has this look of pride on his face as his son made that choice. And I think that's so great. And he doesn't get a lot of moments like this in the series so far, but when they give Sokka these moments, I love them so much.
Yeah, it made me happy that they didn't take that direction of like his father being, wanting him, being disappointed or whatever. Right. Like I was like, oh, right. They played that perfectly. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's sort of spoiling anything too much to say. I think there'll be more to say on Sokka and his sort of series long arc next time in the season 3
good
episode.
Good.
Cool.
That makes me happy. All right. So is that it?
Think so.
All right.
Unless are you going to do any predictions? That's always something that's popular, right?
Well, I think they're going to save the world. That's my prediction.
They're probably going to save the world.
The comet's going to come, and they're going to fight it, and kill the comet with bending.
Yep.
Comet bending. Aang's going to learn the secret comet bending power.
The 5th bending.
And he's going to bend it away from the planet. And everyone's going to be happy.
I think we're going to be spending more time with Fire Lord Ozai because one thing I notice is that we don't really know him. And so right now, he is... I really do go to Star Wars too much, don't I? Right now, he is the Emperor. Okay. He is the Emperor as we thought of him up until Jedi. And then when Jedi starts, you immediately see the Emperor. And you're like, oh, okay, this is the guy. So I predict we're going to start getting to know Ozai pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think you're right. Cool. Aang's going to learn some fire bending. That's a pretty safe prediction there. I'm interested if there's like a level up water bending ability. I guess that's the healing, right? Like I'm thinking each of the bendings has like a secondary one, right? Where the fire bending, it's the lightning. The earth bending, it's the metal. The water bending, it seems like it's the healing. I guess we don't know like what technically would the air different thing be? I don't know.
Yeah, there's not too many people left to figure it out. Yeah. Is the problem.
True.
Maybe it's flight. Like maybe not everybody can do that. I don't know. Just
maybe.
a thought. I don't know.
I'm guessing we've gone to 3 air temples so far. I'm guessing there's going to be a 4th air temple in the west. It's my big guess that he's going to go to at some point. That's all I got. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not in the prediction game. I'm in the knowing things game.
Cool. Well, I am very, very excited to talk about the 3rd season. It's going to be a little bit of a wait, though. We've got, I think, 2 more patrons to go through before we get to season 3 of Avatar. So I hope I haven't forgotten all about the show by then.
I can't believe you're going to sit on that cliffhanger for a few weeks. That's very impressive.
I'm going to start.
I didn't say I'm not going to watch it, so I'm just saying the episode is not going to be for.
I'm going to start watching it as soon as we get off this call.
Okay. I might not do it when I get off this call, I'm going to edit the episode. That's what I'm but okay. So, well, that is season 2 of Avatar. Let's move on to a show that is not as good. So
that's a solid segue.
I am the master of the segues. So Game of Thrones is over, and Matt, at the beginning of the season, I was like, oh, well, we'll do like a before the season episode, and then we'll do like a full after Game of Thrones, we'll do like a full episode to talk all about this season, the final episode, and the series as a whole. But we decided we could probably just like rush it out at the end for no reason at all. Just do that. So that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I have a whole episode worth of stuff to say about it. I mean, I suppose it's possible we might end up doing it anyway, but I doubt it.
Yeah. So let's start with Reuben. Was it you that just like binged the whole thing in the past month?
Yes. So I watched the first episode of Game of Thrones about a month ago. And it's been an intense ride since then, I gotta say.
Yeah, so
I mean, that was something I recommended to Reuben for Media MD, and I think had I known how season 8 was going to go, I may have reconsidered. But I am curious to know, because we haven't really talked about this much, Reuben, but like, it would have been a very different experience, I imagine, sort of jumping straight into it, not having years to hype yourself up for the show. So I'm curious to see how you think it went.
Yeah, my opinion is the bitter, exhausted, tired Game of Thrones fan who just doesn't know why he keeps tuning in. So yours is the one I'm definitely more interested in hearing about.
Yeah, well, look, I did notice a quality drop, mainly in season 8. I don't think I had enough time to really fully digest season 7 as a drop in quality, but season 8, obviously there was some stuff that I was like, oh, why is this happening? But I didn't... Yeah, watching it in 1 month, I think is very different to watching it in 10 years because I don't have the, 6 months, 9 months between each season to really hype myself up. I really like the show. I think it's a great show. I've been reading a lot about, season 8 really soured the entire show for me and now I can't go back and rewatch it. But to me, it's all kind of this, apart from a bit at the end, it's all a pretty good, it's a pretty good show. I like it.
Yeah. So, okay. A lot of the complaints when I would complain publicly about the Daenerys turn at the end of the show, a lot of people I would see on Twitter and stuff would be like, no, you don't understand. This was telegraphed from the beginning. This is always where they were going with this. As you, a person who watched the entire show in a month, do you think that's true? Do you think that the seeds were laid sufficiently to get to where this was always going to be where the character was going to end up?
I think the seeds were laid sufficiently up until season 8. I mean, like, they did do a lot of work in setting it up and really having Daenerys have, a conflict between, like, what am I doing here? And she kind of, she obviously has some anger problems that Jorah and Tyrion and some of the other characters help temper. But then season 8 happens and, it takes about 5 minutes for her to have an expression cross her face that means she's gone evil, which... Yeah, I don't know. I think, yes, they did a great job setting it up. All the seeds were perfect until they just didn't quite nail the landing there.
I would agree with that. Like, I think it was telegraphed pretty much the whole way through the show, but it was like we went from like a seed to a sapling, and then you turn around for 20 seconds and come back, and suddenly there's like a whole oak tree there, and you're like, wait, what? It's sort of how it felt to me.
Yeah, and
it's solid.
It makes me wonder, like, how do you do that properly? Because if if you had seen the tree grow from sapling to giant oak, then you would just be like, oh yeah, well, that's not surprising, right? Like, oh, she gradually turned evil, and then she was evil. Which, I mean, I guess evil is a simplistic thing. Like, she doesn't think she's evil. She's basically in her mind continuing on with what she's been doing the whole time, but the problem is she's now like no longer rational and can't be reasoned with anymore, which I think there's a difference between, like, did they set it up? Like, did they technically set it up? Can you point to scenes where you can say, yeah, this is them setting it up? And did I emotionally believe that she could do that?
Yeah.
And I definitely didn't emotionally believe that that's where she was as a person.
I will say, I think the finale retroactively makes me like it a little better. I think Tyrion's speech about, like, she did all these things and everyone was cheering because they were the bad guys. And he kind of goes through all those moments. It's almost as if the show, like, preempted everyone's disbelief at the change. And so it wrote this scene that's basically like, you, the audience, were cheering her on as she did all these bad things. Little did you know that you were cheering on a monster.
Right.
But I appreciated that on a level. And that's, speaking broadly about this finale, I kind of liked it a little bit. Like, especially the first half. And I think if you get to a point where you're like, okay, these are the decisions they made with the characters, once I get past that, how they end them, I like it. Like I think the first half of the finale, everything up until basically up until the council meeting, I think is fantastic. Like in pacing, in direction again. I think it was wonderful. Like as long as you say, okay, yeah, let's move past this. Let's say the characters made these decisions, blah, 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 yada, yada, past that. I loved it. I thought it was really good. And it was working on me emotionally. John's decision and the rough time he had with the decision worked on me.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of the whole out of order Azor Ahai prophecy. I guess I'm dipping a bit into the book stuff there, but I agree. And even in the second half for me, there were a bunch where I was like, well, again, I think this is something you said in the Discord, Scott, where it was like, considering what the show had become, like there was some good character endings for what the show was. And
yeah.
It's not necessarily where I would have wanted things to end up, but considering that we were already there, I thought that some of those character endings were pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like how we got to these ends, but I liked the ends.
Yeah.
Like I liked the end for John. I liked the end for Sansa. I liked the end for Arya. And most of the other characters as well. The way we got there was really weird. And this is like, it's an episode, I think last week I said, the more I thought about episode 5, the more I liked it. This episode, the more I think about it, the less I like it. and I think it's just because, especially that Kingsmoot scene, the logical leaps that have to happen to make that work, it just, they kind of gnaw at you when you're just like, well, wait a minute. Like, if the North says they don't want to join the alliance, like, why would anybody else? Like, what? Like, why would the Iron Islands say? Why would Dorne?
The Iron Islands?
Why, like, what? Why would any of these people be like, oh, the North's staying out? Okay, that's fine. We're gonna definitely stay in.
I mean, Dorne,
especially because Bran is now the king. It's kind of like, so the North's just gonna fork off, and we're gonna let one of the Starks rule the rest of you. See ya.
Wasn't Dany's agreement with the Iron Islands that they would be their independent kingdom? Wasn't that like that was the plan when they were loyal to her, and now they're just like, that's fine. We'll be here again. That's fine.
I agree with you. It's complete. Everything after basically Jon kills her and the dragon melts the throne is complete nonsense.
It really is.
And
there's no like why the Dothraki and the Unsullied would go away. It's like
right. Yeah, well, I mean, just on a character level, Grey Worm has been shown to be just shanking people.
Yeah,
and now this guy murders the woman who he has like sworn to on a level like as deep as we've seen anyone dedicated to anyone, like as deep as Brienne was dedicated to Renly. And he's like, oh, I guess I'll arrest him and then hand him over. Yeah. And he'll get away scot-free, go to the North, which he loves and wants to go to.
Tyrion's like, the crime was committed on our lands, and therefore our laws must be followed. Yeah. And if I were Greymord, I'd be like, no,
fuck that.
I have the people.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I was Grey Worm, I would have been like, yeah, I mean, that's interesting, but I stabbed him immediately.
Yeah, counterpoint, I killed him already.
He's already dead, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean, obviously, there's the whole thing with how exactly they know what happened to Dany. Like, presumably, Jon just confessed unnecessarily.
I mean, that's such a classic Jon thing, though. I don't even mind that. Like, he definitely walked up to Grey Worm and was like, "I killed her."
Yeah,
it's a very stark move.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, season 7 is the worst season of the show because, first of all, it's boring. It's just super, super boring. Like nothing happens. It's similar level of nonsense, except it doesn't have the redeeming aspect of being incredible TV. Like so many episodes of season 8 were just amazing viewing experiences. Even if afterward you're like, now why would he do that?
Hold on,
hold on, yeah. But they're really just great. Like if you were not a Game of Thrones watcher and you just saw like one of the episodes of this season, standalone. You'd be like, "Oh my god, this show is this is a TV show. This is incredible." And someone would have to explain, like, "Yeah, but these characters aren't acting like coherently based on." And you're like, "I don't care. This look at the look at the dragons." And the reason that happened, I'm pretty sure, like, is that they knew where they were going. They had to get from somewhere around season 4 or 5 to these endings, and then they just completely had a high-speed bicycle accident between like season 6 and 7, were just them trying to, like, basically just cram things into position painfully so that they could get to the ending they wanted to.
And look, I'm fine with Bran being the king at the end, but if that's what you're going to do, you got to spend some time on that character. Like, you have to spend more time on that character.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot do it that way. Like, I have in the back of my mind, like, George wrote on a piece of paper, Bran king, and they were like, "Oh, how the hell are we going to do this?" And their decision was just do it. Just at the very end, just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
everyone laughed when Edmure Tully went up, but he would have been probably just as good at it.
I know. Like, Edmure Tully makes as much sense to the rest of the people in that council as Bran does. Like, the unnamed Prince of Dorne is just going to be like, who?
Right.
Why would I? Who's that guy?
Yeah.
I think they had, honestly, I think the fault with season 8, and maybe you guys already have touched on this, I obviously didn't listen to the past episodes because I wasn't caught up yet, was they set up the kind of conflict between Jon / Aegon Targaryen and Daenerys, but then that never turned into anything, right?
Yeah.
I think that was the perfect way that they could have developed Daenerys into what she eventually became, but
Sure.
they just didn't use it.
Yeah, it turns out the only thing that Aegon Targaryen mattered towards in the story at all was motivating Tyrion a little bit, motivating Varys a little bit, and maybe helping drive Dany to her madness.
Yeah. And I think it did, but it was so you just didn't really believe it. So
Why would that not be brought up at the King's Moot thing? Like, even if they dismiss it, like, even if they'd be like, well, yeah, okay, he is the Targaryen, but he also killed a queen, and, like, for the peace of the realm, we cannot have a person that's killing. We cannot have a person who's committed regicide on the throne. We just can't do it. But at least bring it up, right? Just be like, oh, by the way, everyone at this council probably knows this already. Like, I why not do that? I don't know.
I think the thing I enjoyed the most about season 8 is I think this is something that's been talked about a lot, but ever since the show overtook the books, like, it's obviously somewhat hampered George's enthusiasm for continuing the story. And I have to imagine watching season 8 has reinvigorated him to tell his own ending.
Yeah.
Because it needs to happen now. I've never been so thirsty for the finale of A Song of Ice and Fire to be done as it should be.
Yeah. I've had an urge these past few weeks to really revisit the books, and I've got so many books on my list I need to get before there. But I am going to go reread all 5 of them, and hopefully by the time I'm done, 6 will be out. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about this world again. So, and like Matt said, I think it is really good TV at times. Like, I want the show to win every single Emmy, but writing. Because I think it deserves it. I think every one of the characters was on the top of their game this year. Their performances were all spectacular. I've really loved them. The production, the set design, the direction, I think, was incredible. They deserve so, like, just the outfits, like, just the costume design was killing it this year. It's amazing some of the costumes they came up with. And it is a TV show the likes of which we've never seen and might never see again. I mean, we'll see what Amazon's Lord of the Rings thing looks like, but yeah, I just, like, it's one of those things that you just want to you sit down with it and you're, like, emotionally okay with it, and then you just want to pick at it, and then as you pick at it, you're like, why would Bronn be the master of coin? What?
Yeah, I think it was Preston pointing out that, like, everyone who's on the small council is just, like, a complete nonsense choice, almost at the level of being farce.
Yeah.
How is Sam the Grand Maester? What?
Yeah, I think Davos is the one exception to that.
Yeah,
I
he
think
actually knows about ships. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. How would Tyrion not be in the book about the War of the Five Kings when he is the thing that started the War of the Five Kings?
He was the hand to like 3 different of those kings at different times.
Like,
he was accused of killing Joffrey. Like it's there's no way he wouldn't come up in at least a negative way.
His kidnapping started the conflict. He was hand to 3 different kings. He was hand to the person that was killed on the throne after sacking the city. Like, he helped orchestrate her assassination. Like, I understand that's a funny joke. Like, it's like, history is going to completely forget you, Tyrion. But like, it doesn't make any sense. And it's like, I think that's a good microcosm of what the show does, where it goes for the moment while ignoring the logic around it. It's like, it'd be really funny if like Tyrion gets ignored again. It'd be fun. Like at the very end, he's ignored again. But it's like, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, retrospective statements about the show. I was looking at the subreddit, the Song of Ice and Fire subreddit, which I don't ever really do, but I was like, let's see what the skinny is. And there was a thread that was basically like, we actually are kind of spoiled, because when we first heard that they were going to do a Game of Thrones show, I at least I was like, oh, it's going to suck. Like you can't possibly do that. Like, and I was actually really skeptical. Like for the first episode or two, I was like, I don't know. I remember being super nitpicky about like the intro with the White Walkers, being like, oh, that's not really how it's supposed to be in the book. But like the show completely won me over, and kept me won over pretty much until they ran out of book. And that's kind of amazing, right? Like they definitely shit the bed later on, but I mean, they really, really did a great job for years.
I mean, I would go so far as to say seasons like 3 and 4 of the show are probably, like, for me, even more enjoyable than the books ever get. Like, they capture the books so well and put it on screen almost perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, and I think you're right, Matt. I think that is what we have to keep in perspective here. That like the idea that the show was even good at some point is remarkable. Like this was a book series that was almost constructed to not be adaptable, and they didn't always do a great job, but the fact that they did a good job is almost a miracle in and of itself. And I think we lose that a little bit in the minutia of the nonsense of the decisions in these last few years. But, I am not one of those people that's like, oh, season 8 was so bad, it's ruined the show for me. No, absolutely not. I was doing a rewatch before the season started. I didn't quite get through it all, but I got 4 seasons through it. And those are 4 years of remarkable television. And as much as a lot of those choices in the end don't make sense, I still want to call it remarkable television. And one day, it's going to take a few years, but one day I will journey through it again. And I'm wondering what it's going to feel like that time, with the expectation of the end in your back of your head. What's it going to feel like?
Yeah.
I'm excited to find out.
And fingers crossed, Winds of Winter in your memory as well.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Mm. I think it's an incredible show. I mean, watching it, I don't think there was a single character that I didn't at one point fall completely in love with. To the extent that I at one point messaged my girlfriend saying, I don't think Cersei would be actually that bad of a queen. And she was like, what the hell? but seriously, like the acting was so phenomenal for all of what is a huge ensemble cast. It's really kind of mind-boggling to think about the heights that it reached.
Yeah.
I agree. I will say that it's easier to sympathize with Cersei when you don't see into her head. I think show Cersei is actually more understandable and likable as a character than book Cersei. I agree with that completely.
Yeah, too bad she did absolutely nothing in season 8.
Yeah,
or 7.
She stood at a window.
She got paid $500,000 an episode to stand at a window.
Yeah,
good for you, Lena Headey. You did good.
Yeah.
All right, so goodbye, Game of Thrones. Maybe one day, Matt, will do an episode of the Doofcast on the Winds of Winter. One day.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Maybe so.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
I'm not ready to give up hope yet. I still think the book's coming out.
I do too.
Well, I don't know if you saw, George actually posted a blog thing like a couple of days ago saying if he's going to something in New Zealand halfway through next year, and he said if he hasn't published it by then, New Zealand has his permission to lock him up and put him in a cabin until he publishes it.
Well,
I feel like he said that before, but
let's take him seriously. Hopefully New Zealand can actually arrest him.
Can you guys just pop over there and handle that for us?
Yeah, I've been meaning to head to New Zealand.
Game of Thrones fans.
I've been meaning to head to New Zealand and do one of those like Lord of the Rings movie tours, and so if George is locked up in a cabin as well, just sort of extend it and turn it into a big fantasy vacation. And go poke at George to keep writing as I visit like the Hobbiton and stuff.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
I mean,
I'll hold you to that.
There are more than nine sample chapters that he's already released from this book.
It's like half the book, right?
Yeah. So, and then this is some of these dating back to 2010. So,
wow.
Okay. So the final thing I'll say is that at the very end of the show, Ghost gets some good pets, and their decision to not have him pet Ghost is completely redeemed. And actually, I don't know how much time I want to spend on this, but that makes me wonder how we talk about television in this day and age. And I don't mean like water cooler conversations. I mean like critical analysis of TV. And this is just an example. It's not like a literal thing, but like when the show does something and you hate it, and then the show reveals 2 episodes later that it was doing that for a reason. And like, do you think that how we analyze television shows needs to change?
I think it's fair to say that because of that sort of thing, it's difficult to criticize something that is ongoing. And I think this is something all 4 of us have probably mentioned at various points in We've Got Worm /Ward and Deep in Pact, because we've probably encountered it there as well. Like it can be tough to talk about stuff like this when you have an incomplete picture of it.
Yeah. And that's basically why on We've Got Worm, we don't really critique. Like, except for a specific, if something like specifically like just doesn't work in a moment for someone to where it's for either Matt or I, to where it's like obvious that this is not a setup or going anywhere. I think literally my only critique that I've made in the past few episodes is like, hey, I wish this metaphor wasn't stated quite as explicitly as it is. But other than stuff like that, we don't critique on our show because it's that same feeling. It's like, how do you critique something if you don't know where it's going? But I think like the content wheel of these big, huge shows almost demands that critics, and like, look, I'm lumping us into that because we did it after every episode. I yelled about Ghost on the internet after that episode. But I just wonder if we shouldn't be doing it that way,
Well,
I think it would be fair. Like, and I think if I was a creator, this is what I would be enjoying is if everybody yelled and got mad because Ghost wasn't getting the pats, and then when he gets the pats a few episodes later, everyone's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, he got the pats, all is forgiven." Like that's, I think as long as you own up to the fact that you were reacting to the incomplete story, and potentially that was what the creator is going for. I think that's fine. Like, I think as a creator, that is what I would enjoy the most, even.
I actually think the VFX artist, like a week ago, just like gave up and was like, he fucking pets him at the end of the show. Like, leave me alone. He pets him at the end of the show.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I definitely enjoy both doing and consuming the kind of criticism where it's like by someone who thinks that the person they're critiquing is a genius and all of their decisions have merit, even if they don't agree with them necessarily. And what happened certainly with the ending of Game of Thrones was everyone on the entire internet decided that Dave and Dan are morons who aren't qualified to do anything at all and can't make any good decisions. And thus it became fair game and in fact encouraged to nitpick and find fault with everything. And I think I definitely partook in that, like in the last few episodes of Doofcast, where we just kind of talk about their show, and I would just be like, God, this sucks, and I didn't like this, and it's like, yeah, I mean, that's neither the kind of criticism that I like to do nor the kind that I like to listen to. So introspectively and taking your comment to heart, I think I'll try to do better at just like maybe not indulging in that so much unless I feel really confident that something was indeed like an avoidable mistake. I don't know, because I kind of do feel like a lot of stuff that happened in season 8 was avoidable mistakes, but generally I feel that the mistakes were made in season 7, and then this was them like trying to paper it over. So
well, I think valid critique is valid critique, like no matter what, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if they did something bad, and I think they did, then it's your obligation to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do agree that like the way we talk about these things, the way we kind of pounce on something without seeing it to its fruition, and I agree that and we participated in. I'm not saying I'm immune to this, but the way we kind of pounced on these guys, and the mistakes that they made, like I feel like you can criticize a show without needing to drag the writers of the show. Like the show made bad writing decisions for sure, and they're responsible for those writing decisions for sure. But we don't need to like it's a television show. Like we don't need to like say mean things about these guys. Like it's just
well
it's not good writing.
Yeah.
The end.
And I don't think that I have been as harsh to them as I have to say Damien Lindelof, who does deserve
let's talk about that, Matt.
who absolutely deserves everything that I've said about him, and I take nothing back. Yeah, that's a good question, though, Scott. I'm glad you brought that up.
I mean, I think it's interesting for Dave and Dan because, they have copped a lot of flack in the last 6 weeks in particular. And now they're moving on to Star Wars, which, of course, is completely immune from internet criticism. So, I mean, I guess they're going to have to get used to it, right? Because I can't see a situation where you make a couple of Star Wars movies and everyone's okay with it. In a way, this may have just been the warm-up for them, which is not really a good thing. But, yeah.
No, yeah, but I don't... The thing I reject out of hand is that this idea that the Star Wars movies are definitely going to be bad because they made some poor writing decisions in the show. Like I definitely don't think we should do that. Like that's I think they have not even put pen to paper on the show yet, probably, or this movie yet, probably. So this idea that we've already made the decision that this is going to be bad, I just don't. I mean, like individual people can be like, yeah, I'm not going to watch it because I didn't like what they did with Game of Thrones. I think that's fine, but to like conclude critically on the strengths of what this movie, we have no idea what it's about yet, is way too premature, and that's where I kind of draw the line. I'd be like, no, we cannot do that.
But I think it's inevitable that if there is criticism towards the movies, it will head in the direction of criticizing those two and their writing because of what has happened in the last 6 weeks. And I think, it's very. I think that's going to happen regardless of whether it's justified or not, which is a shame.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it is good to point that out, though. Like, I would rather have a root canal than have to take the first half of someone's beloved story and some scribbled notes on the ending of their beloved story and then fill in the second half. Like, that just sounds like an impossible job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And when they took the job, they probably figured it'd be done by the time they got there, right? Like, I don't think either of them took the job thinking we're going to catch up and pass the books.
I agree. Yes.
Also, and again, George has been stuck on this for over 10 years now. Like if it was that if it was that easy to write the finish, George would have managed it as well. Like it's an epic story, and it's not that easy to just quickly wrap it up.
True.
So yeah.
True. Yeah, and I agree with you that expectations around Star Wars movies are crazy, but also like the difficulty in writing a good Star Wars movie shouldn't be as high as writing a Game of Thrones show, because like it's just space wizards.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to do complex political intrigue.
In fact, please don't.
With multifaceted characters. Let's just do space fighting and laser swords. That's what people want.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's Game of Thrones. Rest in peace, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
What a ride.
Yeah. My first date with my now wife was her using Game of Thrones as an excuse to hang out after we finished eating dinner, because it's like, oh, Game of Thrones is on, you want to stay over and watch it? And did that. So
well,
that was 4 years ago. Oh crap, I should know that. 4 years ago.
Well, thank you, Dave and Dan.
Yeah, thanks. You're responsible for my marriage. That is all we had for you guys this week. If you have any opinions on Avatar Season 2 or on Game of Thrones, please let us know. You can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia. Reuben, Elliot, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us again. We always love when you guys are on the episode. We love talking Avatar with you. It was really fun to talk Game of Thrones with you too. So thanks for coming. And do you want to plug your stuff?
Sure. So for those of you who don't know us, we run the Deep Impact podcast, which is also on the Doof Media Network, where we dive into Pact chapter by chapter, 2 or 3 episodes a week. And we also do a show called Media MD, where each fortnight we talk about a different kind of piece of media that one of us hasn't seen. So we recently did Comrade Detective, an 80s fictional Romanian propaganda police detective show. So check that out. And this week we're...
I'd never seen that show, but I listened to the episode anyway, and that was a ride.
Yeah, the whole show is a ride. I would definitely recommend it. And this fortnight we're talking about a series of interview podcasts with David Tennant interviewing all his British celebrity friends, which is also pretty interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that episode's out in like 3 or 4 days after this one, I think. So coming soon.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
So if you want to find out about that, you can head to mediamdpodcast.com.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
Now featuring load times under a minute.
Yes, true.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
So if you're not already subscribed to this podcast or to those guys' podcasts, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else that podcasts can be found.
And you can find all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. That's where you can find this, Without a View. We've got Ward, Deep Impact, the Reuben and Elliot's aforementioned show, all over there. And if you like us, which hopefully you do, and you want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head over to our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to help ensure we keep growing and keep making new stuff. This episode right here, the one we just did, only exists thanks to the incredible generosity of our longtime patron, Andy. And guys, Andy got married this week, which is crazy.
Ooh, Andy.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Andy. Yeah. To both you and your partner. Now all they have to do, guys, is decide which was more exciting, them getting married or this episode of the podcast. I think that's a tough call.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I couldn't make that call.
On the one hand, marrying the love of your life. On the other hand, Avatar.
Season 2.
Season 2.
Yeah.
Also, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
Yep. All right. That is it for us this week. We'll see you next week. I think we're talking about live action Disney movies, which is a topic that nobody has any opinions on at all, right? There's no contentious opinions on live action Disney remakes or anything.
Everyone loves them, right?
Yep, that's true. We'll see you all next week.
And you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.